Talk about a very, very humid morning. Holy cow. Anyhow, we're going to get some ICF stacked out today. It is time to start bringing these 11-foot tall walls up. Let's get it going. You can see here I'm pre-drilling holes for rebar. I measure it off to space it properly for the webbing. Pre-drilled them several at a time. I really didn't like this path. It didn't end up in the exact locations I wanted. And the main reason I was trying to drill more holes than one at a time and stack another course is due to the fact that the epoxy that I put into the wall to ensure, there's that word again, the rebar is properly glued to the stonework. The tip dries up faster than what I can get one course stacked. So I'm running through a bunch of tips and I was trying to solve that problem, but I did not like pre-drilling several of them before the block was actually stacked. Okay, so we got our first course down. We got our doorway cut out here, and you guys saw I stacked across it first. The reason I stacked across it is to ensure that the lock features line up properly. So I had one section that was more waste, it's actually right there, than what it should have been, but that's due to the fact that I was trying to make sure that everything locked properly. Now that it was locked and I could stack across the top of it, and then I could cut it and trim off that second course. And then this course here, every time we'll start right there on that edge. Yes, we'll probably have to cut it. As you can see, it's not quite a common, so it's just a little bit off, which is okay. But instead of cutting it at the common and starting there and having a bigger foam gap, I'll probably leave that a little extra long and just trim it every time. Over here, I'm running into more castle, unlevel, unsquare, unplumb stuff. I thought this wall leaned. Let me rephrase that. I knew this wall leaned. We were good on the stem walls with that masonry wall, but it is leaning so severely, it's actually starting to turn my ICF wall in a little bit. So I've got to make an executive decision here. The first course isn't horrible, but I can see that it's starting to lean in because this wall is putting pressure on it. The executive decision I have to make is, do I just cut that outside leg of the ICF block off and run it flush with this edge, and then leave the inside and just ensure that I put a brace right here to hold it, and let the concrete just come up against this masonry wall and foam the ICF right here in this corner to ensure I don't have anything coming out. Yes, I said that word, so you guys know what that means. But before I get too far along, I want to point out there are 3 ribs on the inside of this ICF. 1, 2, 3. That is for rebar attachment, hold the rebar in place. A lot of you might ask, why are there 3? Well, you've got a couple of different options depending on where your pressure is going to be. For example, in a basement, all of your pressure is on the outside. And in most cases, you want rebar on the inside or bottom third away from all of your pressure. So in a basement, you're going to put your rebar on the inside lock mechanism, meaning this one all the way up in the entire wall, so that all of that pressure receives all the strength on that bottom third or inside third. Whereas now that we're above grade and we don't have any pressure going on this wall, you alternate. So you can see that bottom one down there is on the inside lock, and then this top course, the second course, which isn't the very top, but the second course is on the middle. You might ask, why do you alternate it? Well, eventually I'm going to put 11-foot tall verticals in here, and when I do that, as you can see, that traps the vertical rebar in between the two. So if I just set it on the bottom, lean it towards the outside of the building just a little bit, I can go ahead and put my verticals in before the pour if I don't want to wet set my verticals, since they will be 11 foot tall in length. So you can see how that works out quite nicely. So essentially in those same locations, you see I have a vertical there, I will ensure that I have verticals everywhere in those locations, and that staggered rebar holds it in place really nicely. Let's get back to stacking. Well, there is 5 courses stacked out, rebarred to the castle wall. I did make my executive decision. I think it's pretty obvious what I did there. You guys can see I am leaving just a little bit of a gap. It's hard to get that gap exact because this face is pretty erratic. But I'm also tying the ICF to the cinder block wall. You can see that 90 that I threw in there, and then down at the bottom there's another straight coming out, and then here when I go with the 6 course I'll put in another 90 right here. That should tie everything together really well. And I'm also shoving the rebar in the holes and epoxying. Yes, that 90 is epoxied as well. So wanted to give you guys, I discussed the alternating horizontal rebar so that your vertical stays in place. This is a really good visual of that right here. You guys can see this one's on the inside, so let's call that number 1. So 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, and then the next course will be 2, and I'll be able to slide that vertical rebar right down in here. So hopefully that gives you guys a really good explanation. This wall over here is much easier. It's tying in really nicely, but I also don't have a 90-degree wall right next to it. I drew some pencil lines right here. Normally this is not how you use ICF. I'm cutting all the ties off and not using this back piece. So this piece is going to be really flimsy. So I'm going to run a 2x4 from the furthest stud I can reach and run it all the way across to here somewhere, so that that piece is strapped to this piece before I put that brace on there, which should help ensure that this piece doesn't want to lean in from all that concrete pressure. But I am definitely going to have to put a brace right here in the center of this, which would be here, to ensure that this piece doesn't go anywhere. I would have had a brace somewhere close to this corner anyhow. My biggest concern is as I stack up, I got to make sure that this wall doesn't tip in, because now I have no straight line on this backside like you see here to ensure that it pulls it over and locks it in. It actually looks like this piece might be leaning just a little bit, and it's probably because of that piece of rebar, so I need to cut that tie off there. This tie here and this tie here to make sure that that rebar does not put any negative pressure on that piece. But we are out of time for the day. Got stuff going on with the family, so we got 5 stacked all by ourselves. You can see how the doorway ties in there, and that'll go all the way up, and I'll show you guys a buck, how to frame a buck the next time I am here, which hopefully won't be too long away. But hopefully you guys enjoyed the video, and as always, like, comment, subscribe.